So normally we say that a noun is the name of something. It can be the name of something physical, it can be the name of an idea. Yeah.
Person, place or thing.
Yeah, that's right. She learnt it.
I only learned it because I had to teach my kids it and I didn't know it. So
Person, place, and I hope it had idea in there as well, because
probably didn't, but you know.
yeah, because ideas, it's harder to call them nouns, but you are. A verb is the actual action. So if I said, the dog bit me, I might use that later on. The dog bit me. What did he do? He bit, that's right. Yeah. That's the verb, that's the action. Yeah. So what did he do? He bit. Yeah. And then you can say who bit, and that gives you the subject. The dog bit. The dog bit who? And that gives you the object. If we don't have to go into that today, but that's where you get subjects and verbs and objects and how our sentences are constructed. But if you just remember that the actual act itself is the verb, and it can say, what did we do? Abstract nouns. Now I've written the definition, a definition of abstract nouns up here. Abstract nouns name things or concepts. I've said the word things, not so that's not a literal thing, but concepts that are not concrete. That is, they cannot be seen. They're not physically there. So anything that is naming a concept that can't be seen is an abstract noun. Now, most Australian languages have very few or none in the way of abstract nouns, like in single word nouns. They can have ideas and things, but they don't have names for them as such. One of the languages, in fact the only language group that I've found that actually have such a thing as an abstract noun are the Yolngu languages of North East Arnhem Land. All the others just don't have them. The Yolngu languages, if you get natural text, like somebody's just telling you a story, and you analyse that text, you'll find, I think in all of the data that I got from my analysis of the Wanguri language, I think I struck 3 abstract nouns. So they're not very common. So this isn't a language group that can use it, but they just don't use them very often. Abstract nouns are usually, not all the time, but they're usually nouns that are derived from verbs. Now, let's imagine a verb. Someone is deciding something. And it's like the action of deciding is happening, and it's like we're standing back and we're looking at it and saying, that person has made a decision. We've turned the action of deciding into a noun. That's an abstract noun. Now, pretty well not all of them, people have come up with ones that don't, but most English words that end with ION are abstract nouns. Permission we came across before, didn't we? Yeah. What's the action that's happening? What's the verb that's happening under the word permission? To permit. All right? Come on, start telling me other ION words and we'll see if we can find the verb that's underneath there.
Discussion.
Discussion, what are you doing? When there is a discussion going on, what is happening?
Sharing ideas.
Yeah, but what's the verb? To discuss. That's the verb. Yeah. To discuss. If you put a to in front of it in English, it makes it easy, because then it'll, yeah. To discuss. Another one? Connection. So what are you doing? If you're looking and saying, oh, they're making a connection, what are they really doing?
Connecting.
Yeah, that's right. To connect. The action is to connect. That's what they're actually doing together. So can you get the idea of what an abstract noun is then? There's a verb underlying it, usually. There are times when it's not, but I'll come across them in a minute. But there's an action going on underneath it. And we've stood back and we've named that action. and it's got that ION word. And in fact, when I was at primary school, we used to learn Latin and Greek roots in the public school systems of Queensland, which I still find profitable now. And I can remember learning the ION means the act of. So decision is a word means the act of deciding. And so it's actually naming the action. So when we're talking about the decision, we've actually, what they were doing, the verb they were doing was to decide. All right? Then we've watched them doing that deciding, and we've given them this noun, oh, they made a decision, where we could have just said they decided. But we do like, in English, we do like to turn it into those abstract nouns that where we're giving a noun name to the action that they've got.
And we do it all the time.
It is very, very common, and if you look at any government speak or any professional speak at all, they're in there all the time. So I want you now, whenever you see an ION word, from now on for the rest of your life, you've got to have an alert come up in your brain and say, whoops, that's likely to be an action in under there.
Participation.
Okay, so what are they doing with participation?
They're participating. But
Yeah,
during participation.
Pardon?
It's a consent form. During participation.
Yes. So you actually say, you've got to actually change that around totally, because you're actually, the word participate is enough. So you actually then turn it into an abstract noun. When you think that they're not used to thinking in abstract nouns, it makes it, you're making it harder for them by including abstract nouns. Just identifying some abstract nouns first, and then we'll get on to a little talk about exercises from it. So even teacher is an abstract noun. What does it come from? What's the verb that it's coming from? To teach. That's the action. Yep. Belief is an abstract noun. What are you doing? When you have a belief, you are believing.
So think is an abstract noun.
It can be, but
Thought.
if you're talking about a thought, it's an abstract noun.
Yeah.
But if you just say directly,
think.
I thought, or I think, that's a verb.
This is too hard.
Well, it's new, but grasp it.
This is why it took Anne like 50 times to write a paper.
It's good to grasp. Medication, what are you doing when you're giving somebody medication?
Yeah, medicating them.
You're medicating them. It might be just easier to say, I'm giving you medicine. And then you've got the verb to give, and then you've got medicine, this thing that's there, that is, you know, it's not an abstract noun, it's just a noun, yeah. Now, this one is a good one. You've got an ER, like in teacher, and you've got an ION.
It's because we're hiding that we're just practicing on people.
There you go. She's hit the root verb straight away, hasn't she?
We don't want to tell you that we're just practicing on people.
This is like one who has the act of practicing.
Extra distant.
So yeah, we've got the practicing, we've stepped back to talk about practitioner, and then we've stepped back another thing to talk about a practitioner. And it makes it, you're really getting into realms that make it very hard for people who don't have these in their language. And so you really do need to find your abstract nouns and change them so that you use the verb. Abstract nouns can also be formed from adjectives, like you get happiness from happy. Happy is an adjective, but you're wanting to talk about that, and you've brought it out and abstracted, taken away from the yeah. And in fact, in a lot of Indigenous languages, a lot of what we have as adjectives are actually in the verb form. So, and anger comes from angry. You are actually angry, that's the adjective. And, you could cut the anger. You've turned it into a noun there. You've taken it a step back from the just saying he was very angry and leaving it as the adjective that's there. And sometimes in English we can use a word as a verb or a noun. And when they're used as a noun, they're an abstract noun. We gave you the example of love before. I love my dog. That's a verb, straightforward action, verb form. But if I say, I have a great love for my dog, I've then taken it away from the action and I've described that action in this abstract noun idea. If you can put a in front of it, you've turned it into a noun. Or in front of it, you've turned it into a noun. And so those things are abstract nouns when there's a verb at the underneath of it all. Okay? Now, we'll do this as a group exercise. I won't make you write it together. But here's the thing. The CEO passed on the board's decision to the staff. And I've got up there, don't forget to put the events in the right order too. So when we're reworking this, but first of all, can you find any abstract nouns inside there? How did you find decision? You saw ION and your brain went, whoop, there is an abstract noun. That's what you're going to do from now on. Hone in on those ION words because they're abstracts and try to find what the verb is. Okay, what's the verb underneath decision? Decide. We've got to turn that into a verb. Now, what is the verb of that sentence? What action happened in that sentence?
Passing.
Yeah, passing. The CEO passed something. That's what he did. All right. So now we've got to keep that one, but we've got to turn this one into a verb. So we're going to have a whole new clause. Okay? And we've got to say, okay, we've got to say decide in there. All right, who did the deciding? Who decided?
The board decided.
The board decided. And then after they decided, what happened?
The CEO told the information to the staff.
The CEO told it to the staff. All right? So now we actually have two sentences. Makes it a lot longer. Okay, now what happened first? Did the CEO pass the information to the staff? Or did he make the decision first? Or did they make the decision first? What happened first? The decided was first.
They decided something.
They decided something first. Thank you. I was going to ask that, but you've already come forward. So the board decided something. And we've got to put things back there. We learnt that you've got to put things in the right order. All right? So we've got to put that first. So the board decided something. Second sentence.
CEO told the staff.
Yes, there you go. And you know, it does make all the things longer. And a lot of Western thinking doesn't like things getting longer. We don't like things getting longer. We'd rather people didn't understand than to make things longer.
That's why it's so annoying when everyone says just keep it short and simple. That those are opposites.
They're the opposites. They are.
Yeah.
So be aware that it will make it longer. What you're writing will be longer because you're now turning one word into a whole sentence. An occasional abstract noun in any of the Yolngu languages is okay because they do use them occasionally, but it's having one after the other, which is a danger when we're translating these things, that you're actually condensing the information that they're supposed to know. Notice when we did it back here with the CEO, and I said it was we turned it into two clauses, two sentences, that made it longer. To actually turn that into an abstract noun, we've condensed the information, all that information condensed into one word, then we've stuck it into a sentence with a whole lot of other information. So we have made that it's information dense when you're using abstract nouns. The whole idea is to stop making the information be hitting them in the face too much at once, to spread it out. Are there any abstract nouns here?
Injury.
Yep. So, yes, injury. Now, what's the verb, what's the action underneath that word injury? To injure. All right, so how we're going to reword this, it may be that we got a brain injury. Okay, it may be that our brain was injured.
Or our brain got injured.
Yeah, you could say our brain got injured or our brain was injured. Yeah, okay. What Elise said was probably best, but there's another step in between where I need that the phrase to say that it may be that our brain was injured, because I want to teach you another thing about that. But it may be that we got a brain injury. You've got to take out that word injury. Okay? It's an abstract noun. Underneath is the fact, the action of being injured, of getting injured. So you actually have to turn that and say, our brain was injured. In our example sentence, there is one abstract noun, injury, comes from injure. To remove the abstract noun, we have to use the verb it comes from, so using a whole clause instead of just one word. Make things longer, but what do you want? Do you want them to understand it, or do you want to make it short? So we do have to keep working. So there you are. Something hit our head hard. It may be that our brain was injured. Our doctor shines a light into our eyes. Our pupil becomes small slowly. Okay, now's the time for you to get onto yours and look for all those abstract nouns that you might have.